My wife cheated on me with her boss, then manipulated me into signing away $250, $0 of our family savings after claiming I had mental health issues, but the truth came out too late, and now she's fighting me over the house and our daughter's inheritance. I never thought I'd end up here, honestly. My wife, Lisa, was the kind of woman everyone admired, beautiful, confident, sharp-tongued when she needed to be. We'd been together for over 10 years, married for 7. At first, everything seemed perfect, or at least close to it. We had a nice house in the suburbs, a good life, stable jobs, me as an accountant, her as a marketing exec. We had a daughter, Emma, who was the light of our lives. But over the past few months, I started noticing little things that didn't add up. It started with her phone. She'd be secretive, always taking calls in another room, quickly deleting texts. I'd catch her in little lies about where she was going, who she was talking to. Nothing huge, just enough to make me suspicious. Then she started working late more often, claiming it was just big projects at work. I didn't think much at first. I trusted her, or at least I thought I did, but the feeling of unease grew stronger. The biggest sign, though, came unexpectedly. I was at work one day when I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was a phone, a blurry shot of Lisa with someone I didn't recognize. They were at a restaurant, sitting close, laughing. My stomach sank. I stared at it for a long time, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But I knew better. That night I decided to check her phone when she was in the shower. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed answers. What I found was even worse. There were dozens of messages, flirty texts, suggestive photos, and then I saw the real kicker, messages from her boss, Mark. They'd been talking for months about work, about getting away, and about how much they enjoyed each other's company. It was obvious they'd crossed the line. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All that trust shattered in an instant. The worst part was the way she lied about everything. When I confronted her, she told me it was just a work flirtation. That Mark was just a friend, that I was overreacting. She called me paranoid, said I was imagining things, but I knew better. The evidence was right there on her phone, in her own words. I felt betrayed by her, by the woman I thought I knew, by the life I'd built with her. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, the lies, the cheating, the way she looked at me with that fake innocence. I was furious. Not just angry, but hurt. Deep down, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach so many times I couldn't breathe. I wondered how I hadn't seen it earlier, how I'd been so blind to what was happening right under my nose. All those late nights, the missed calls, the secret texts, I had missed the signs. Or maybe I just didn't want to see them. The next morning, I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I sat her down and showed her the messages. Her face twisted into a sneer, and she told me I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that I was just jealous because of her success. She said Mark was just a mentor, that I was paranoid and insecure, but I wasn't buying her lies anymore. I felt a strange mix of heartbreak and rage. My mind raced. What do I do now? How do I confront this betrayal? How do I even begin to process the fact that the woman I loved and trusted had been sneaking around behind my back? The thing is, I'd always been the stable one, the dependable one. I worked hard, paid the bills, kept everything together. And Lisa, she was the one who always seemed in control, who knew how to manipulate situations to her advantage. I started to realize she'd been doing that with me too, gradually, over time. And now, I was left standing in the wreckage of a marriage I thought was solid. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck, and the worst part was knowing she was still out there, lying, hiding, pretending everything was fine. I didn't want to just walk away, though. Not without making her pay. Not without making her see that she couldn't treat me like a fool and get away with it. That's when the thoughts of revenge started creeping in, how I could turn her world upside down, how I could make her feel the same betrayal she'd inflicted on me. I didn't have a plan yet, but I knew I needed one. I'd been betrayed, yes, but I was determined not to be the fool who got played and walked away quietly. Not this time. After that initial confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, replaying the moment I showed her the messages. Her sneer, her fake tears, her lies, everything felt like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. I started digging deeper, going through her phone more carefully, trying to piece together the extent of her betrayal. The more I looked, the more I found. It wasn't just the texts with Mark. There were emails, receipts from hotels she'd booked, even secret bank transfers. She'd been planning something, I could feel it. One night, I decided to follow her. I didn't tell her I was onto her, not yet. I just wanted to see where she was going, who she was meeting. I parked outside her office building after she claimed she was working late. My heart pounded as I watched her leave with Mark, her boss. They got into his car and she looked happy, too happy. I knew then she'd been lying about how just friends they were. That happiness, that secret was real. It was sickening. Over the next few days, I gathered as much evidence as I could. I started recording their conversations, sneaking around like a damn spy. It made me feel sick, but I needed proof. I also started noticing strange charges on our joint account, expensive dinners, gifts, trips she was planning without telling me. She'd been draining our savings little by little, all under the guise of stress at work or buying things for Emma. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. We had $250, $0 saved up, and she was trying to quietly take it all. I was furious, but I also felt betrayed on a deeper level. I'd always been the one to keep everything together, paying the bills, making sure Emma had everything she needed, keeping our life stable. Meanwhile, Lisa was sneaking around, lying, manipulating me into thinking I was the problem. She even told me I had mental health issues when I started suspecting something. She played the victim as if I was the crazy one. That's what really cut deep, her ability to turn the tables to make me doubt myself. Then came the day I finally decided I couldn't take it anymore. I sat her down again, this time with all the evidence spread out on the table. Her face was furious, defiant. She yelled, called me paranoid, said I was losing my mind. She said I was jealous, that Mark was just a professional mentor, that I was imagining things because I was insecure. But I had proof, screenshots, bank statements, recordings. I wasn't crazy. I was hurt, betrayed, and furious. That's when I realized I had to do something drastic. I couldn't just confront her and hope she'd change. She was a master manipulator, and I knew she'd try to spin this into my fault. I had to take control of the situation. I started planning how to get my money back, how to protect Emma's future, and how to finally end this nightmare. I also knew I needed to cut her off from our finances before she drained everything. I contacted a lawyer, started looking into divorce options, and made sure to keep my evidence safe. But here's the thing, while I was gathering all this, Lisa kept pushing her narrative. She told everyone I was unstable, that I was crazy, that she was the victim. She even threatened me, saying I'd regret ruining her career and her reputation. She played the victim so well that I almost doubted myself again. But I refused to let her manipulate me. I knew the truth, and I knew I had to fight for what's mine, our house, our daughter, our savings. The most shocking moment came when I found out she had been secretly talking to her boss about our house, about Emma's inheritance. She was trying to push me out, to get me to sign papers giving her full control. She told me it was because I was mentally unfit to handle the estate, that I was too unstable. That was the final straw. I realized she'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. She'd been using my trust and my love against me, twisting everything to her advantage. Now I'm at a crossroads. I've hired a lawyer, collected enough evidence to prove her infidelity and financial manipulation, and I'm preparing to fight for my rights. I want her out of my life, and I want to protect Emma's future. It's been a long, painful process, but I'm finally taking control. The betrayal cut deep, but I'm determined not to let her win. I just hope I can rebuild from this mess and find some peace. The more I dug into everything, the clearer it became how deeply Lisa had gone to manipulate her way out of this mess. She was good at spinning stories, at making herself look innocent, even as I uncovered more and more evidence. It was like she was playing a game, one where she knew all the rules and I was just stumbling around trying to keep up. I'd been stupid to trust her blindly, but now I was seeing her true colors, and it was ugly. One night I caught her in a lie that changed everything. I had been suspicious about her phone. She always kept it close, even when she used the bathroom or went to bed. I finally decided to check her email, just a quick peek. What I found was shocking. There were dozens of messages between her and Mark. discussing not just work but plans for secret meetups, trips she never told me about, and even explicit talk about sex. I couldn't believe I'd missed all this. All those late nights, all those work emergencies, and she was with him. That was the moment I decided I had to act decisively. I started gathering all the evidence, screenshots, bank statements, recordings. I was meticulous, trying to make sure I had everything I needed to expose her fully. I also reached out to a private investigator who confirmed what I suspected. Lisa had been cheating on me with Mark for months, possibly longer. She'd been lying to me about everything, even about her stress at work. She used her job as a cover, a way to justify her secret meetings and trips. Meanwhile, she kept up her lies, telling friends and family that I was crazy, that I was paranoid, that I was trying to control her. She played the victim so convincingly that even some of our closest friends started to doubt me, but I couldn't care less about what they thought. I knew the truth, and I was finally ready to fight for it. I started talking to a lawyer, figuring out how to protect our assets and Emma's future. I also began the process of planning how to get her out of the house, how to stop her from draining our savings any further. The financial aspect was the most infuriating part. Lisa had been secretly siphoning money from our joint account, charging expensive dinners, designer clothes, even trips for her and Mark. She'd been planning to leave me with nothing, or at least so I thought. I discovered she'd already transferred over $100, $0 into her personal account, claiming it was for emergencies. But I knew better. She was stealing from us, from Emma's future inheritance, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. The day I finally confronted her with everything was a turning point. I laid out all the evidence, screenshots, bank statements, recordings. Her face twisted into anger, then panic. She everything called me a crazy, jealous husband and accused me of trying to ruin her career. But I had enough. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I was taking back what was mine, and that I would fight her over every cent and every inch of that house. I told her I was done trusting her lies. Her reaction was pure venom. She yelled, called me names, said I was destroying her life and ruining Emma's future. She even threatened me, saying she'd make sure I never saw Emma again if I went through with this. I was stunned. I'd never seen her like that, so bitter, so manipulative. It made me realize how far gone she was, how much she'd been willing to do to keep her secrets safe. I felt a mix of disgust and resolve. I wasn't going to let her win this. In the days that followed, I moved out of the house temporarily, hired a lawyer, and started the legal process. I also contacted the bank to freeze her accounts as much as possible to prevent her from draining any more money. I knew she'd try to manipulate the situation, maybe even lie about me to the authorities or the court. But I had enough evidence to prove her infidelity and financial misconduct. I was determined to get everything back, to protect Emma's inheritance, and to make sure she couldn't get away with this. Some nights I'd lie awake, replaying everything, her lies, her betrayal, the way she looked at Mark like he was her salvation. I'd feel a deep, burning anger, but also a strange sense of relief. I'd finally uncovered the truth, and I was taking steps to fix what she'd broken. It wasn't easy, and I knew the legal battle was going to be long, but I was ready. I had to be. For Emma, for myself, and for the justice I knew I deserved. The legal process has been from hell. I never imagined I'd be in a situation where I had to fight so hard to reclaim what's rightfully mine. Lisa, of course, played the victim at every turn, crying to everyone about how I was trying to destroy her, how I was crazy, and how she was just doing what she had to do to survive. She spun stories about how I was mentally unstable, trying to get the court to see me as some sort of threat. It was infuriating, but I had the evidence, more than enough to counter her lies. The moment I filed for divorce, she flipped into full-blown attack mode. She hired her own lawyer, and suddenly our quiet life turned into a battlefield. She started making outrageous claims, saying I was a bad father, that I was mentally unfit to care for Emma, and that I was trying to ruin her reputation because I was jealous of her success. She even tried to turn Emma against me, telling her I was unstable and that I didn't love her anymore. Seeing Emma look at me with confusion and doubt tore me apart, but I knew I had to stay calm and keep fighting. Meanwhile, I worked tirelessly with my lawyer to gather more evidence, financial records, emails, recordings, to prove her infidelity and her financial misconduct. The bank confirmed she transferred thousands of dollars into her personal account, and I managed to get a court order to freeze her assets. I also hired a private investigator who uncovered even more proof of her secret meetings with Mark, including hotel receipts and photographs. Every piece of evidence was solid, and I knew I had a strong case. The hardest part was dealing with her manipulations. She kept trying to turn Emma against me, telling her I was crazy and dangerous, all to sway her to her side. It was heartbreaking to see Emma confused and upset, but I stayed firm. I explained everything to her, in a way she could understand, how Lisa had lied, how I was fighting to keep her safe and secure. I made sure Emma knew I loved her, and I promised I'd do everything I could to protect her inheritance and her future. One of the most shocking moments came when Lisa's lawyer submitted a petition claiming I was mentally unfit, citing supposed episodes I'd had over the past few months. It was a blatant lie, but I knew she'd try to use any tactic to win. I had my therapist's reports and medical records ready to disprove her claims. I also gathered character references from friends and colleagues, people who knew I was stable and responsible. I was determined to show the court that Lisa's accusations were just another manipulation. Throughout all this, I felt like I was losing pieces of myself. The betrayal, the lies, the constant fighting, it was draining. But I kept reminding myself why I was doing this. Not just for the house or the money, but for Emma's future. I wanted her to grow up knowing her father fought for her, fought for what was right. I refused to let Lisa's lies destroy that. The court hearings were intense. Lisa sat there, crying crocodile tears, trying to sway the judge with her stories of being victimized, while I presented my evidence calmly. It was clear who was telling the truth. The judge saw through her manipulations, and after weeks of legal battles, I finally got a court ruling that protected my rights. The judge ordered Lisa to return the stolen money, awarded me primary custody of Emma, and put restrictions on her access to the house until the divorce was finalized. But even with the legal victories, I knew this wasn't over. Lisa was still fighting, still trying to manipulate the system, still trying to hold on to her secrets. I had to stay vigilant. I had to keep fighting for what's right. My trust in her was broken beyond repair, and I realized that sometimes the only way to truly win is to stand your ground and never let the other person get away with the lies. I learned that betrayal runs deep, but so does resilience. And I wasn't about to let her take everything from me, my house, my daughter, my dignity, not without a fight. The months that followed the court's initial ruling were a whirlwind of ongoing battles. Lisa refused to accept defeat, and she ramped up her manipulations, trying every trick in the book to turn the situation in her favor. She filed multiple appeals, claiming I was harassing her, trying to paint me as the villain in everyone's eyes. She even went as far as accusing me of abuse to the court, fabricating stories that made me look like the bad guy. I knew she was desperate, but her lies were starting to wear thin. During this period, I kept working closely with my lawyer, gathering more evidence to counter her latest accusations. I also hired a new private investigator to keep tabs on her activities. Sure enough, she was still sneaking around, meeting with Mark, trying to manipulate the judge and anyone else who would listen. She was trying to hide her financial misdeeds, too, transferring money into secret accounts, making large cash withdrawals, and even trying to sell off some of our assets behind my back. One of the most devastating moments came when I found out she'd been secretly trying to get Emma to change her last name to hers. She told Emma that she was the real mother, trying to brainwash her into turning against me. It broke my heart to see my daughter confused, caught in her mother's web of lies. I knew I had to act fast to protect Emma's identity and ensure she knew who her real father was. At the same time, I began to realize that Lisa's real goal wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about control, over me, over Emma, over everything. She wanted to ruin me financially, emotionally, and I had to stay strong, keep my focus, and not let her drag me down to her level. I started seeing a therapist to help me deal with the emotional toll, and I made a point to spend more quality time with Emma, reaffirming my love and commitment to her. Meanwhile, the legal fight took a new turn. Lisa's lawyer filed for full custody of Emma, claiming I was unstable and unfit. They submitted false reports, exaggerating any minor issues, trying to sway the court. I had to counter all of that with character witnesses, medical records, and expert testimonies. I also hired a child psychologist to assess Emma, making sure her best interests were protected. It was a brutal process, but I was determined to prove I was the stable, loving father she needed. Throughout all this chaos, I kept my eye on the prize, getting Lisa out of our lives for good, protecting Emma's inheritance, and reclaiming what's rightfully mine. I knew she'd never give up easily, but I was ready. I'd learned a lot about resilience, about standing up for yourself even when everything seems stacked against you. I also realized that sometimes the only way to truly win is to accept that you may have to fight dirty, play the game by their rules, and never back down. Looking back, I can say I've grown stronger from all this. The betrayal gutted me, but it also made me realize what really matters. It's not the money or the house. Those are just things. It's about protecting your family, your integrity, and your peace of mind. I've learned to trust my instincts more, to listen to that little voice that says, something's wrong, and to act before it's too late. I still have a long road ahead, but I know I'm on the right track. No matter what happens next, I'll never let her manipulate me again. I've fought too hard for this, and I'm not giving up now. The final stretch has been the hardest, but also the most revealing. After months of legal battles, manipulations, and emotional, I finally managed to get a clear court ruling that puts an end to Lisa's schemes. The judge awarded me full custody of Emma, ordered her to return the stolen money, and restricted Lisa's access to the house until the divorce is finalized. It felt like a huge weight had been lifted, but I knew the scars would stay for a long time. Looking back, I realized how deeply I was betrayed, not just by Lisa's affair with Mark, but by her entire web of lies, manipulation, and greed. She tried to destroy everything I cared about, our family, our future, my reputation. But I refused to let her. Every step I took, every legal move was about protecting what's mine and standing up for myself. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life. Emma is still adjusting, but she's resilient. I make sure she knows she's loved unconditionally, that her father is here for her no matter what. Seeing her smile again, knowing I fought for her, makes everything worth it. Lisa's influence is waning now, and I'm finally able to breathe without the constant fear of her manipulations. The biggest lesson I've learned is that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, and sometimes the only way to survive it is to face the truth head-on, no matter how painful it might be. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair, so guard it carefully. I also learned that resilience isn't just about fighting back. It's about knowing when to stand your ground and when to walk away. I've come out of this a different person, more cautious, more aware, but also stronger. I know now that I don't need a toxic partner to be complete. I've found strength in myself, in my ability to protect my daughter, and in the knowledge that justice, no matter how long it takes, will prevail. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, trust your instincts, document everything, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Betrayal hurts, but it also reveals who people really are. And sometimes the only way to heal is to take back control and rebuild from the ruins. I did it, and I know you can too.